Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. A couple things before we get started. First of all, we will be recording today's session, and I'll make sure that you get a recording after the webinar is over. Usually it takes a day or two to get that processed. The second thing, if at any time during today's webinar you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A box in the bottom of the Zoom screen. That way we can follow up with you if we need to after the webinar. Today's topic, we're going to take a look at Dynamics SL and the reason why a lot of our SL clients are choosing to go with another system called Acumatica. So to kick it off, we have Drew to begin with. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. So today we're going to continue our series on discussing SL and the options that current SL users have for moving forward. With me today is Matt Ramsey, who heads up development. He's a partner at GFC, myself, obviously, and then Joel McDonald, who is the director of our services and pretty much the in-house Acumatica expert for us. These guys will both be speaking. Matt will be discussing some of the things that we've built to help SL users transition to Acumatica. And Joel will be doing a little bit of show and tell on some basics around the product. So Joel, if you can move to the next.
Sorry, I'm moving ahead. Sorry.
Slide, please. All right. So in our session today, we're going to have a brief discussion of what's end of life mean for SL. What are the options, staying moving, and why Acumatica? And I'll leave it at that right now. And end of life. It doesn't matter what version of SL you're on right now, whether you're on 2011, 2015, 2018, or even earlier, it's end of life. The product is not going to be updated. There's no longer any updates on this. If you are current on maintenance with Microsoft, you could move from 2015 or 2011 or earlier up to 2018, so at least you can leverage all the things they've put into that version as it stands, with not only functionality but with its ability to live in newer environments. But the fact is there are no more updates or anything coming out, at least that anybody knows of. Now it's Microsoft, so you never know what's going to happen, but pretty sure it's over with. Now, the July 11th, 2028 date that everybody's been hearing refers to extended maintenance or enhanced maintenance. The only thing anybody that I know of has been able to find is in a 400 plus page document, there's a couple of 2-line references to Microsoft providing security patches for Microsoft Dynamics SL. And if you think about it, security patches to what in SL? Not to the application. It would probably be to the servers that Microsoft Dynamics can live on. So it's kind of like, what does that really mean? Joel, if we can flip to the next one. So what are our options here? We got there's 2 or 3. You can stay on SL. You could, if you're on an older version, you could certainly upgrade to the newest 2018 CU11 if you are current and you have that version available. Again, if you're not current on maintenance and you're on 2015, 2011, whatever, you're basically stuck. You'd have to repurchase SL 2018 to get there. And that's kind of, if you're going to do that, you might as well take the alternative and go find another product if you really want to, move up in the world and become more technology forward. If you are moving to another product, what we have found and what we have banked all our cards on is that Acumatica is a great transition point, and for a number of reasons. And it's not to say that there aren't other products out online, Google, and you can find a number of different products. And they all have their goods, they all have their bads. Nothing's going to be perfect. But we found with Acumatica that if you really like SL, you like a lot of the things that it does do, then Acumatica has kept those pieces of functionality. And Acumatica has really addressed, both on a UI level and a functionality level, things where SL fell short. And we'll talk a little bit about that coming up. Can we go to the next slide? So why GFC chose Acumatica? So one of the easiest things was, and for long-standing SL users that have been around for the last 15 years, you might remember that back in 2009, I believe, Acumatica started hanging around the SL user groups and the old Convergence conference and everything. And the reason why they were doing it was because they had familiarity with the product, and they had familiarity with the Microsoft VARs out there at the time. And one of the reasons was because of this. John Howell, who started Solomon, basically was the guy behind Acumatica. And so they built Acumatica with SL in mind, or a good piece at the time of SL. And it is definitely familiar. So if we can move to the next. So big things about Acumatica. It was born in the cloud. This isn't a product where they took it and said, oh yeah, it's an on-prem product and we're just going to jam it into a cloud system and we're going to call it cloud. This was actually built to function and live in the cloud. Totally mobile. You can use it anywhere on any device, from your mobile phone to an iPad or what have you. Anywhere you can get internet, you can use it. You look at the infrastructure costs, SaaS model or private cloud. If you have an Azure provider or an AWS provider, you're not paying for infrastructure. You're paying for it to reside in the cloud, but you're not paying for a bunch of bodies to back the thing up and make sure the servers are running and all that good stuff. It actually, with Acumatica, and I could say it for any other new product that's out there, you're definitely going to a point where you're going to be able to leverage future technology, modern technology now, future technology, where with SL, you can run it as long as it's going to run on the newest technology. So if you got it on an old server and you can't find that old server once that one crashes, and that's the highest level that you can go with that environment, you're stuck. So this basically says you can move on for near and far future. With Acumatica compared to SL, and you'll see this, there's a huge upside in what they did with the user interfaces. There's a lot of the same common stuff. And what I tell a lot of our prospects when we're going through sales functions and stuff, if you took Acumatica and you scribbled the name off of it and you told an SL user that this is the new cloud version of SL, they'd believe it because it's familiar. It's not the same, but it's familiar. And a lot of it is basically the same terminology, same concepts, but a lot more enhanced. And then as far as the open API is concerned, one of the things that we as a group have done well over the years has been able to integrate SL with a lot of different third-party peripherals out there. I can name a bunch of them, but what Acumatica provides for us is a completely 100% open AI API. So we can pretty much integrate anything. And that's a big plus with Acumatica versus some of these other newer systems. Joel?
Sorry, there we go.
So
yeah, pricing. I was waiting for the pricing topic. Yeah.
So one of the things that naturally happens all the time. How much is Acumatica? How much is it going to cost us? Well, one of the things with Acumatica that's very unique, and I'll provide a little side thing to this, but Acumatica is not user based, so they do it on a consumption model. So they take these 8 different data points, and what we do is we ask the client, or if we have access to their SL system, we can do it ourselves for the client. We ask them to give us the monthly total for each one of these. So say AR invoices was 300 a month, AP bills was 500 a month, sales orders was 100 a month, and that's all we have that's pertinent to that client. Well, it's going to be the AP bills, the 500 a month. That is our number that we're going to use to size the version, or not the version, but the level that you'll be purchasing for Acumatica. And there's a bunch of different levels or sizes of each edition. And there's a bunch of editions. There's a general edition, there's a professional services edition, there's a distribution edition, a manufacturing edition, a construction edition. And within that, there's a bunch of e-commerce e-commerce. And there's a bunch of different sizes for each one of those editions. So we take the number here, we match it against the grid that Acumatica uses, and we can come up with the size. And we can actually even take the recommended size for an edition, and we can downsize it to save you money if you fit within that downsize. So there's all sorts of ways of pricing this thing. One caveat to this, Acumatica does have an introductory version or an introductory size of each one of the editions. It's called Essentials. And that is priced on named users. You can purchase 5 named users, or it comes with 5 named users, and then you can purchase an additional 5 named users. So there is a limitation there of 10 named users, but that's the exception to the rule. Can we switch to the next screen, please? Yes, thank you.
There we go.
So Gale Force has invested in Acumatica in a number of different ways. One is training all of our consultants and bringing in the right consulting people and salespeople and everything else. And we've built a pretty successful practice around Acumatica. We still do our SL and GP solution support. Will always be there for those clients as long as they want to stick around on those products. But our move has been to Acumatica, and we've built that practice. One of the things that Matt has done with his development team has built a bunch of tools that assist in helping SL clients make the transition to Acumatica. And Matt's going to talk a little bit about those as we come up. The one thing I want to say here is we've had over the years, and Matt and I have lived the pain of this. We've had certain clients who have said, we absolutely have to have all of the history. We just need to have it in our system. It doesn't matter how much it costs. And we just need it because we can't afford to have our users going to the old system and looking something up. And Matt and I can attest to the fact that I think the last 2 we did was somewhere in the range of 1,500 hours for each one of those 2. And it's just crazy money. So what Matt and his team did was he said, let's just build something that allows for transactional data to be in the system, not or non-transactional data. And what I mean by non-transactional, you can't touch it, you can't transact against it, but you can look at it. So the reference point is right within Acumatica, and you don't have to go back to SL, or if you're a GP user or you're some other user, you don't have to go back and look at those systems. You can sunset them. So I'm going to turn this over to Matt now, and Matt can talk a little bit more about these and show you some pretty cool stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Drew. Matt Ramsey, I'm a partner at Galeforce Partners, head of the software development side of things. So I'm going to share my screen and jump into what we've done with Acumatica. Y'all see my screen? So I'm going to show you, I'm in Acumatica right now. This is local on my one of my VMs. I'm going to show you what Drew was discussing on the SL historical view, we call it. So it gives you, you can dig in, it'll show you how you can dig into SL data within Acumatica. And so the idea behind this is we brought over a certain information from SL into Acumatica, into our tables in Acumatica, and we built screens off of those. So you can view the data all in one screen. So we'll start with the vendors. So we did vendors, customers, projects, project transactions, GL transactions, inventory. So I'm going to just go through these at a high level, but I'll show you how it relates to, how you can view your SL and Acumatica information all in Acumatica, without bringing over all the data that everyone wants, because the balances and everything else is going to come over when you move to Acumatica. And then later on, I'll show you how to use Power BI to view other data if needed from your legacy system. So we'll start with the vendors here. And I set up, some of the vendors so that I can demo the integration point here. So what we did here is we have, obviously this is demo data. So with the vendor AA services, we added this custom field called Legacy ID. We call it Legacy ID because we can do this with Dynamics GP, working on QuickBooks as well as SL. For now, this is SL. And what we put in here is the legacy vendor ID from SL. So if I click on our legacy data, it brings up our custom screen, vendor legacy data, and this is exactly the same for customers. And you'll see in here, 3 bills have been entered in Acumatica, and obviously this grows as you use Acumatica more and more. And here's your legacy data from your SL application. And this is, the vendor documents at a higher level, and I'll show you how you can even drill into the transactions of your legacy data. So let's take one, for instance. Let me just move this out of the way. So if I click on this show applications, it will show you what the offsets, the payments, the credit adjustments to each of these bills. And now I'm going to open up SL, as you're all familiar with, and just show you where we pulled this data from and that it actually ties out. So here's the vendor, VT0110, which I showed you, we put in the legacy ID. If we go to, I'll just pull like voucher 50, see it's 49,547. It has a payment of 48 and a credit of 9 or a discount of 990. And if I go back to here, you'll see it in Acumatica, same thing. The bill is 49,547. There's your payment and there's your credit. And you can drill into these. Now, this shows every transaction hitting this bill, which is your AP Tran, if anyone's familiar with the back end of SL. So this is the AP Tran information. all within Acumatica. So if a vendor called you up and asked questions about the past, you could get right to it without going into SL and trying to find that information. Now, going back to my favorites here, we also did this with customers, very similar with, I'll pull up, this demo customer, right? And there's CT0, 100. And if I click on legacy data, here's all my Acumatica data, obviously a lot of activity. And then at the bottom, here's the legacy information from SL. And again, now we can drill into the AR tran level. Going back to favorites, this is, we also brought in, it's called the project transaction table in SL, and we brought that information in. Usually we do over so many years decided by the client. So let me show you, and that's kind of tied together the exact same way. So if I go to projects, again, it's all a common theme, so it makes it easy to follow. And this is the beauty of Acumatica. You can basically find anything from anywhere. So I'll pull up this project. Again, legacy ID, because we don't care where it comes from. And C012300. So if I go and look at my project tran data for that project, it pulls up all the transactional data from SL because it's associated to that project. Now there's many, as you see, there's many, because we pulled in every field from PJ Tran. You might not want to see it. The beauty of Acumatica, which Joel will show you, is you can remove fields and it automatically changes the screen. You can move fields around automatically and it can be saved. Where SL, that's a customization basically. So it's pretty easy to use and user friendly compared to legacy products. So we did the same with chart of accounts, inventory as well. So you can look up, basically it's called the GL transaction. So we took the GL transaction information and brought it into Acumatica. Same thing where you would pull up you would match the account to an SL account. And my image is a little slow here. So let me pick one here, 11,000 in Acumatica. And here's the legacy ID, same name, so easy to follow, is 1191. So if I go to favorites, I put in my Acumatica account, it pulls up all the legacy GL transactions for that account. So for whatever reason you had to look this up, it's right at your fingertips. You don't have to go to SL. And the beauty of all this data is you can write reports and generic inquiries, which Joel will probably show you, which are basically like SQL views into your data. And you can bring all this and tie it together with all your Acumatica data. So you're not just limited to the screens we created and the way we want to show it to you. You can see it the way you want because it's in the same environment. Another thing I want to show you real quick is on how to, you want to see other data that you're going to leave in SL. So I don't know if anyone's used Power BI, but we've done a lot of work with Power BI on retrieving legacy data, legacy data versus your new environment. We've done where Acumatica and looking at Salesforce and bringing them together into one reporting tool. It's called a reporting model. It's very powerful. You can go across multiple platforms and view all the data to get together. You will have to build some cross-reference tables, or maybe like we added the legacy key, you might want to add something to Salesforce. just so that we can tie all the information together. So here's just a quick little dashboard of data from Acumatica and from Dynamics SL. So it's interactive. So if I want to show all customers, it shows and it changes this data as well. You can view the data individually if you want and export it. You can pick, whatever period you want. You can pick multiple periods. You can pick multiple customers, and it's all interactive. And you see how everything changes automatically with these visual slicing and dicing. And this can be used. Oh, let me back up a little, getting ahead of myself. Let me show you the back end. So the back end is, these are generic inquiries in Acumatica, which are basically like SQL views that we built. It makes it faster because we're already compiling the data into what we want to see, what fields we want to see. And you'll see that this one says Dynamics SL. So what I did is I just brought in the Dynamics SL customer table just for a demo here. And you'll see that when I look at the link, you'll notice highlighted is legacy ID and customer ID. And that's what I showed you on the Acumatica. We added that legacy ID. So now we can go get that customer information. We can add more tables from SL in here as well. So now you can bring in, in Power BI, you can show data that you don't even need to bring into Acumatica, which, increases the space and the data in your new environment. And a lot of people are going to look at this for a few years and maybe not look at it after that. But it's great for historical references and auditing and so forth. So to show you how this works is I'm going to show you the data. These are the data source settings. This is basically the pipe to all your data. So this is a pipe to my Acumatica, which is, this is going to be out in the cloud. So you can use what's a common way of connecting OData. And then this is my on-prem Dynamics SL. This is the demo database, SL Demo App 60. Now this is a piece of software you can download from that Microsoft created, which is a on-prem gateway, basically, and it's used with Power BI. It's a encrypted gateway into your on-prem data. So now you can bring them both together. You could have more. You could have, DocuWare. You could have Salesforce, many others in here, and bring it all into one reporting model.
Spreadsheets, yeah, whatever it might be.
Sure. Yeah, spreadsheets, CSV files. So you create these. You would create these reports. That's the building block, right? Now I'm going to show you the Power BI service. Let me just go bookmarks. So this is the Power BI service. So what you would do is you create your reports, you build your reporting model, create your reports, and you would publish them to this service. You give, and this is where all the security comes in. Management would only be able to see certain folders or reports that you allow them to see. So now management doesn't have to call you. They can go look at it themselves. It's self-service, which is very important. So you don't have to email it to them. They can run it, export it, and do what they want. So I'll just show you a couple of the workspaces that I built. First, I'll just show you the one that, I just showed you the back end from, the Power BI builder. This is the one I just showed you before. Obviously, it looks a little nicer because it's all built in, we're not showing the back end stuff. Same interactions and all that in the dashboard as it is in the builder. I'll show you a Acumatica one that was built. So this one's a little different. It has, the slicer is based on the year. So as you move this down, all your data automatically changes. And there's many different ways, opportunity analysis, how many opportunities we have, did we win, did we lose, all in the same slicer. What are the items we sold? Every time this changes, all your data grids change with it. So everything's interactive. So there's many things you can do, profitability trends, your budget to actuals. And this can, again, come from many different sources. Doesn't have to just be Acumatica, doesn't have to be Salesforce. You can put them all together in the reporting model, which is the building block of all this presentation. And again, you give your management team access to this workspace. They can run it themselves. They can export it. They can share it. Many different things they can do. And the beauty of Power BI is once you bring in the information, and when I showed you the backend tables connecting, you can literally add calculated fields to those tables right in Power BI. This is data that doesn't exist in any of your systems. It's only in Power BI. So you can enhance it even more with calculations and added data. And that's what I have to show for now. But one last thing on the API is, people coming off Dynamics SL, which really doesn't have an API. It's more of, because it's on-prem. Acumatica has an open API, which, is you can connect to any system from anywhere, and they use other things called, not to get too technical, into webhooks and so forth. So for instance, Salesforce, if you created a customer, call Acumatica webhook, automatically creates that customer in Acumatica. Vice versa, Acumatica can call out to any other program and update data instantly. So there's a big advantage being in the cloud. Obviously, cloud to cloud works, and I just showed you can do Power BI cloud to on-prem, so you're not losing your data. Okay, Joel?
Right.
You want to share?
Thanks, Matt.
Joel.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I should be able to share in a moment here. It's once you
Stop
relinquish
sharing.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
All right. Share that screen again. So Matt, thank you for sharing those pieces and looking at the vendor and customer activity, projects, inventory, the ledger, and the power of something like BI to connect so many disparate systems. You may also want to touch on a couple of the other pieces that you've added for that, making things easier or nicer for that SL transition.
Yeah, a lot of people love flexible billings in Dynamics SL, and Acumatica, has a higher level of that, but not to the depth that Dynamics SL does. So these are some things that we built that, because we know SL and Acumatica, that maybe Acumatica fell a little short in, so we enhanced it with these minor enhancements, but are very important to people from the SL world, especially flexible billing and projects, sub-projects, and so forth.
Yeah, and for those users who actually have account sub-account combination turned on in the GL setup in SL, we've built this same functionality in Acumatica for the main screens of the GL APAR, and I forget which other modules we did it for, but it basically provides the same functionality. The period to post, I just want to note something in here, and you'll see it when Joel goes through and shows you some of the screens. But Acumatica, when you put a date in for, say, an AP bill, they call it a bill in Acumatica instead of a voucher, but you put it in for an AP voucher, AP bill. If you put 11/25 in there, it's gonna automatically default to period 11, or how your fiscal calendar is set up, wherever 11/25 falls in the fiscal calendar. Where in SL, it could update for period 11, or it could be for period 10, depending on where, what periods are closed in the system. We've basically taken what Acumatica does and overrode it to make it do what SL does, because we have had some clients who just like it the way SL did it. So we said, all right, well, we'll do that for you. And we've done that. And then the pay on pay, I don't know how many people use pay on pay in SL, but we've actually built a like system in Acumatica. And we can do others if there's something where a client or a prospect says, "Oh, we just absolutely need this. We love this in SL." We can look at it and we can most likely build it for you. All right.
Well, thank you, Drew. And as Matt mentioned, I'd like to share a few more things about Acumatica, and particularly the usability. Matt started with working from his favorites and going to specific screens. In my example here, I've logged in as a user who has a default dashboard. So I'm a user out here, Max, who's our administrator, and has a dashboard, which are configurable and driven by whatever that user's role or function requirements are. It can be set in place to automatically refresh on periodic bases, as this one is doing right now. And it is a real-time view of what's happening in the application. That opportunity to move to managing by exception, as opposed to looking at reports and other listings and pieces like that, we can have some indicators. These particular dashboards and examples from Acumatica are built to show a lot of that functionality. There's a lot of pieces on these dashboards. In real life, we may slim that down to be very focused on someone's function or role. But we do have, again, key performance indicator little cards. There are graphs and charts, and whether that's a pie chart, a bar chart, a line chart, and other pieces that are available, whether those are listings or even thermometer indicators. An element of Acumatica from that usability standpoint is that many things are, they're interactive, as Matt described as he went through some of the elements around the tables history and the legacy data that we built to extend Acumatica further. Some of those same capabilities here in the standard Acumatica components. While I can drill into something like total accounts payable, I can just drill into that box. It takes me to a listing. As Matt described, this is a broad listing, and this is a summary by vendor of their aging. And when in doubt, double click and look at something such as the vendor itself. So your ability to move around and throw out Acumatica in detail happens here to open up the details that supported that number. I may choose instead to be a user that goes directly to a broader listing. So Acumatica workspaces, modules, menus to the rest of us have a number of choices and options. And given that there can be many, the Acumatica has the option to really define what do you want to see most often? Or do I want to see everything? All the potential reports, or just the ones I use most often. You also see in our implementations, we share many inquiries we've done with clients over time that we expect them to want, to need, and use, and we load those up as part of our value in getting someone configured and getting going right away. In this case, I'm going to look at those bills and adjustments, vouchers to the SL world of things. And this grid, very similar to what Matt had open earlier when he looked at the legacy data. And I did want to highlight some of that personalization, that someone can choose to move fields around. They can decide I want the period before the date, drag and drop. I can decide to look at this field chooser and do some broader changes. Maybe I'm not using projects and I don't have these pieces. I'm just going to move those off. Now, I personally tend to like to know who's the last person who touched that, who has their fingerprints on the murder weapon, and see who last did it and when. I can click OK, and that grid is now personalized to me. It's different than what Matt would see, different than what Drew would see. unless I have permission to decide to share, if you will, my column layout and make that the default for everyone. A user like Matt or Drew could then personalize it themselves after that. But with my permissions, I can set that as the default for everyone else, since I may think I know best. A couple other elements from a usability standpoint in these grids in Acumatica, these generic inquiries as they're called, is the concept of totals within it. Matt mentioned that idea of rather than pushing data out, Power BI, someone can pull what they need. Here in Acumatica, we find many customers not necessarily running the aging report. They might run it at period end from a tile reconciliation perspective to the GL. Interactively, I have my default view to being only things that are open. And I can see that total right there. We also have a concept of side panels in Acumatica. Matt showed you the configuration options earlier where he double-clicked on something and it popped open in a new window. We can also define what are called side panels. So as I look on the screen over here and decide, I just want to split the screen. Instead of having all kinds of tabs and screens and windows open, I can have it basically split the screen for me. And I could resize that to make it bigger. If I get my mouse to cooperate here, bigger, smaller, or decide I want the right side to take over the grid and see that source document, in this case, a bill or a voucher screen. And this sidebar is context sensitive. I'm looking at this bill voucher from Bonafide. I kind of sure click on American Refrigeration in the middle here, and it changes to their document. I can come down to the bottom and see, oh, here's someone down here with some data. Also, some other side panels that are added here that may just look at a quick vendor details listing. What are their open documents? I can see, yep, here's everything that's open. And as you may infer right away, I can double click and open those particular vouchers right from the screen. I could actually indicate, show me everything we've ever done with this supplier, bills, payments, and the like, or just what's open. And the ability to restrict that for a particular period or a GL account if needed. I may choose to run an AP aging report right from the side panel. And this generates that report, which the standard reports in Acumatica provide you with a number of features and capabilities that we don't always see when we in the past have used Crystal and all those other kind of reporting tools. Here in Acumatica, it is interactive. I could choose to send an email. I could kill a tree and print it. I can export this to PDF or Excel if I need to. I can drill down. I'm just going to double click on that number and Acumatica will take me to that source document. And I can see, yep, here is a bill in Acumatica. Another element from a usability standpoint, I described the changing, personalizing that listing of all the open vouchers, or all the vouchers, I should say. You have the same capability within a form itself. I may choose to want my project code, I want the PO number right here. I want the receipt number next to it. And that as well is personalized to me. I may choose by line item to indicate that I do or don't want to see particular fields. I want to, we're only using project and tasks, not cost codes. Drop that off the screen. I do want to see the deferral code if I'm choosing to allocate individual bill over 12 months and have it automatically do my expense recognition out of a prepaid account or something like that. That again is personalized to me with the option, with permission, to share that with other people and set that as a default. So I want you to see some of that personalization capability, again, to do without a programmer. It's not a customization. Haven't had to change anything or build anything. Use existing tools that are there for the users to interact with those pieces. I'm going to close a tab to kind of clean up my desk a little bit here. And I'm going to go back to our grid of open bills and adjustments. One of the features from a reporting perspective or analysis that Acumatica provides in lieu of the great visualizations in a Power BI, I may decide I just want to have a simple pivot table. If you've used them in Excel or Power BI or other tools, I just want to see all that stuff here in Acumatica without going somewhere else. In my case, I'm going to look to a tab, these filters up top, all records, some 4,000 things out here. I'm going to create a pivot table. I'll bill count by vendor. Sure, I'll be very creative, and I will choose to share that. You might choose to not initially until you get it right. I do that. That now appears on everyone's screen who has access to the screen as an option. So I may elect to choose something like the vendor name. I'll take the reference number and I'll say, count that. I'll see what that looks like. So I've just now created a pivot table that shows me how many bills and adjustments we've entered by vendor. It's not particularly pretty, so I might choose an icon to adjust that. Going back to the settings, I'd like to make the name a little more readable, so I'll just increase the default size. And perhaps I'd like to see how many by year. I'm going to drag the date here, and I'll go to an option in Acumatica and say, I don't want to see it by individual day, but summarize that by year. Let's see what this looks like. I can now see my totals by vendor, by year. And I can go to the very end and see those totals by year of where those sit. Leverage. Thank you, Jen, for starting the recording again. We may choose to look at these and say, let me look at any odd documents by their status. And say, you know what, I only want to see stuff that is open. Let me click OK, and now my count changes. And I can see that data represented there. So I wanted to share with you how just easy or straightforward or simple that was to manipulate and utilize some of the standard functionality in Acumatica. One thing from a tactical point that Drew's often shared with me of an AP frustration in the days of getting a debit adjustment from a vendor and the need to apply that to a phantom check and a bunch of extra steps and work along the way. When Acumatica built out the application, they did have SL in mind, as Drew mentioned earlier. They thought about what are a couple simple things we could make just a little bit easier. I'm going to pick some bill in the middle here for bona fide office supply. And I can choose to actually basically reverse that. I want to have it set up a debit adjustment. And I can match it with this. It's going to reverse this entire total. I can save that. I can look at the application side and remove the hold. And I can actually release this and have it auto-applied and match those documents up. So I'm now